What the rich do after midnight, you were never meant to know. She never signed the NDA. That was their first mistake. The second, they let her see what happened behind the mirror in room 9. What you're about to hear isn't in any official record. There was no arrest, no public trial, only the fragmented testimony of a woman who walked out of a mansion with red wine on her dress and someone else's blood on her inner thigh. This isn't about sex. Not exactly. It's about power. The way the ultra-wealthy feed off silence and host parties where consent is assumed and resistance is an inconvenience. If you think secrets die with the victims, then you haven't met Ava LeClaire. Let me take you back to that night when the lights dimmed and the first scream never rose above the music. They flew her in without asking for a resume, private jet, no name on the passenger manifest. Just an embossed invitation slid under her hotel door in Marseille Château d'Écume. Arrival, 6 p.m. Wear black. Ask nothing. Ava had worked dozens of high-profile events. She was used to secrecy, custom menus, silent service. Women like her were the backdrop. They poured the wine. They weren't asked their names, and they were certainly never invited into the library after midnight. But this was different. From the moment she stepped onto the estate, she felt it. Not the luxury that was expected, not the wealth that was curated, but the precision. Every candle the same height, every mirror tilted slightly off-center, and every guest beautiful in a way that felt engineered. Ava's handler, a man named Jules, briefed her in 3 sentences. Stay in your corridor. Refill glasses every 7 minutes. If someone drops a glass, don't pick it up. He didn't smile, didn't blink. And when she asked what the party was for, he replied, "It's not a party. It's a selection." By 11:42 p.m., Ava had counted 6 bottles of champagne, 2 mild overdoses quietly escorted out the back, and 1 woman mascara streaked dancing like she wasn't allowed to stop. Room 9 was closed. Velvet rope, gold door handle. No sound came out. But people went in and came out, altered. Eyes unfocused, shirts misbuttoned, skin flushed or scratched. She wasn't supposed to approach it, but at 1:03 a.m., someone asked her to bring a tray of food inside. And Ava, tired, curious, too brave, did. What she saw wasn't criminal. It was curated, choreographed, staged, a slow, elegant consumption of a woman's will under observation. And no one blinked, because the richer you are, the less permission you need. You only need a playlist, a glass of wine, and someone whose mouth you can fill before they scream. That night, Ava wasn't paid. But the next morning, someone sent her a purse. Inside, no thank you note. Just a diamond-studded card and a photo of herself. Inside room 9, staring straight into a mirror she hadn't realized was a lens. Ava didn't go to the police. She went home, showered 3 times, burned the dress, blocked the number that had sent her the purse, and stayed awake for 46 hours. Not because she was afraid, because she knew exactly what kind of people hosted parties like that. And they weren't just rich. They were connected. She Googled the address. The chateau wasn't listed. The event didn't show up on any tabloid. The host's name, Leonard Duval, to a politician, a biotech CEO, and a shuttered vineyard. All probably real. None of them were the man who shook her hand and said, "Your eyes are too honest. That's good for tonight." On the 3rd day, a man in a gray suit sat across from her on the metro. She hadn't seen him board. She didn't notice when he slipped a cigarette case beneath her coat. Inside, was a note folded once 4 words: "You are being considered." That night she changed apartments, paid cash for a roadside inn near the airport. No luggage, no ID, and yet the front desk received a call. Using her real name. The clerk handed her the phone, confused. A woman's voice came through, calm, tired, the kind that commands without ever raising volume. Ava. The purse was a courtesy, not a payment. You opened the door. Now you live with what's behind it. We'll be in touch soon. Let's not turn this into something dramatic. Ava didn't cry. She poured herself a drink, turned on the TV, muted the news, let the low hum wash over her, because when the only way out is pretending you've already stepped in, what else can you do? 3 weeks passed. No calls, no knocks. She started to think maybe it was over. Maybe room 9 was just a nightmare, some strange hallucination. Until she received an envelope. No stamp, no return address, just one photograph, black and white, grainy, zoomed from across the street. It was Ava, at a cafe, smiling. Next to it, a line in red ink, pretty, but too obvious. That night she ran, booked a flight to Madrid, then Reykjavik, then a ferry to the Faroe Islands. She told no one, not her sister, not her accountant. She even changed her hair. But when she checked into the guest house 3 days later, the receptionist handed her a note. "We don't need to follow. We've already arrived." Ava stopped running. Not because she gave up, but because she finally understood they weren't watching her to silence her. They were watching to see if she was useful, and they had already started using her. They called it Table 12. It wasn't an actual table. There was no number, no chairs. Just a code name delivered through a video call at 3:17 a.m. from an account with no profile picture. The speaker didn't show their face, only a flickering reflection of light across a statue. A woman's voice, slow, precise. Table 12 meets every 6 months. You won't be asked to serve. You'll be asked to observe and to record. Ava asked record for who, no answer. 3 days later, a plane ticket appeared in her phone's wallet. No email, no message. Just there, as if the system itself had uploaded it. Departure Berlin. Destination unlisted. Gate 5A, private entry. At the airport, Ava stood above the crowd watching the terminal below. No other passengers were on the manifest. No check-in counter. A man in a flight crew uniform approached, smiling. "Ms. Leclerc, this way, please." The flight lasted 2 hours. No explanation. No crew. Just a wooden box on the table, and inside it a clock with no hands. A matty black timepiece engraved in silver. You are not early. You are not late. You arrive when we need you. Upon landing, Ava was taken straight to a Bauhaus-style building. Frosted glass automatic doors, no signage. She was led into a white room, one wooden table, a glass of water, and a man already seated. He didn't stand. Just stared at her like he was inspecting something rare and delicate. "You're here because you crossed a threshold. We just need to know how far you're willing to go once you realize there's no way back." On the table lay 3 photographs: a smiling Asian politician at a press conference, an American tech CEO shaking hands with a president, a 14-year-old girl in a white dress, hair down, eyes foggy with fear. The man said only one of them was in room 9. But all 3 have something to lose. You get to choose which one we investigate. Ava stared at him. "And if I don't choose?" He tilted his head. "Then you become the 4th photo. No caption, untraceable. That was when Ava understood they weren't trying to silence her. They wanted to absorb her, turn her into a node, a survivor, reconstructed as a monitor. She said nothing, just pulled the second photo toward her. He has the most data, the most cameras, but he believes no one would dare. The man nodded. Good. Welcome to your new job, Ms. Leclerc. As she left the room, Ava no longer felt like she was running. She walked as if every step was a contract, a condition, a calculated counterstrike. But deep inside, a part of her still remembered the red dress from that night, the look through the one-way mirror, and the whispers never caught on tape. The first room Ava was taken to had 6 screens, no windows, no visible security cameras, just a pair of headphones, a beige dossier, and a woman sitting cross-legged smoking, like the whole thing was unfolding in slow motion on purpose. Her name was Celeste. French accent, red nails, eyes that had seen too much and never needed to prove it. You're not here to stop what's happening, she said. You're here to understand who profits when it does. Screen 3 showed a party, looked like a fundraiser. There was a piano no one played, wine being poured that never ran out, and women brought on stage like walking art installations. In the far corner was the man Ava had selected in the second photo, Arthur Langston, CEO of a global telecom empire, known in elite circles as the king of untraceable connections. Ava's task was simple: track every time Arthur left the main event space, log every hushed complaint from the staff, note every look of evasion from those in his orbit. At 2:23 a.m., another video played. This one wasn't from the party. A private room, no main surveillance feed, just grainy footage from a hidden device under the table. In frame, Arthur Langston, a young girl in a school uniform, and a masked woman holding a camera. Celeste. Ava turned to her. You filmed this? Celeste nodded without removing the cigarette from her lips. He asked for it. He likes insurance. That girl, she's only 16, Ava said. Celeste looked at her as if the question itself was too naive to deserve a response. Darling, in this world, 16 is late. She had a manager. She signed a waiver. Everyone in that room thought they were protected. Ava pushed her chair back. Why are you showing me this? Celeste stubbed out her cigarette, leaned forward. Because you're not here to feel. You're here to decide whether this is worth trading for something bigger. Inside the folder was a contract. No salary listed. No insurance terms. Just a single line: observer access granted. Full discretion expected. Breach will result in reclassification. Ava asked, reclassification? Celeste smiled for the first time since they began. It means you move from watching to being watched. Ava signed, not because she agreed, but because she knew information only has value if you're close enough to touch it, and cold enough not to let it burn you. That night, back at the apartment they assigned her, Ava found a small gift box on the bed. Inside, a watch, identical to the one she received before. No hands, no ticking. Only one new line engraved on its back. This time, you're not the guest. You're the mirror. Ava couldn't forget the last image of Venus' eyes, open footsteps, unsteady, her white dress pulled slightly askew. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She walked into room 9 like someone had shut off the human part of her long before. And then she vanished. The USB stick, hidden inside a tin of chamomile tea, lay beneath a loose floor tile under Ava's bed, next to a fruit knife she never used. Every night she checked it, touched it, like it might detonate just by being real. She thought about sending it to the press. But the press needs verification. The press needs sources. And the press needs to live long enough to publish. She thought about Talia, a human rights investigator who had contacted her 9 months ago before Ava ever accepted this assignment. Talia once said, "Don't worry about breaking the story. Worry about making it undeniable." Ava reached out through an old encrypted channel. No email. Just a weather page that masked itself as harmless forecasts, each line a coded message. That day's forecast read, "Chance of storms. Winds from the east. Likely within 72 hours." Ava understood. Delivering the evidence now meant triggering a chain reaction. Not just with the handlers within the system, but with the unseen sponsors, the ones who never appear in photos, but can change national policies with a single phone call. That evening, Ava was invited to another party, but this time she wasn't there to serve drinks. She was issued a gown, fitted with an earpiece, given glasses linked directly to the control room. "Your lead tonight," Celeste whispered. "Observe record, and if necessary, redirect." Ava nodded. But inside, the only thing she was observing was who in the room still believed they were a guest. Then she saw him. Not on the list. No badge. Sitting still, in the corner yet every camera in the room avoided pointing in his direction. Ava approached cautiously, her fingers tight around the glass's control panel. He looked up and said only one thing. "If Venus was a mistake, then you're the correction." She stepped back, not afraid, just cold, like someone had unlocked the safe hidden deep inside her memory. At the end of the night, Celeste called her into a private room. "You handled yourself well," she said. "They liked your restraint." Ava didn't respond. Celeste studied her, as if reading everything she hadn't said. "They'll be inviting you to the table soon." "Table 1." Ava exhaled, not in surprise, but in confirmation of what she'd suspected for days. "You mean the ones who fund the rest?" Celeste nodded. "You can't expose them, Ava. You have to become one of them. That's the real prize." Back in her room, Ava sat before the mirror. She removed the glasses, took off the earpiece, pulled the USB from its hiding place, and for the first time, her hands didn't shake. She knew now silence was no longer a choice. It was the dress she once wore, and tonight she was taking it off. She powered up her device, loaded the backup copy, and scheduled the release, exactly 72 hours later. Just as the storm was forecasted to hit the eastern coast. No confirmation needed, no reply expected, just a single name arriving at the exact moment the world might finally be forced to look, even if only once. Day 72 began, under blinding sunlight. No storm in sight, no wind, no clouds, just a tightness in Ava's chest, like the air was too clean because someone had already sucked the oxygen out of the sky. At 9:00 a.m., she received an unmarked envelope. No sender. Inside was a fax-printed photo, faded gray edges crinkled. In the image was Talia, hair disheveled, a light bruise on her face, sitting under harsh fluorescent light hands tied behind a chair. No note, just one line typed across the bottom, one leak, across, one ghost. Ava didn't scream, didn't tremble. But for the first time in years, her heart skipped out of rhythm. Talia wasn't her best friend, not a confidant, but she was one of the few who believed Ava could do the right thing and live through it. And now, that price had come to collect. Ava powered on her laptop and checked the scheduled transfer. She canceled it, not out of fear, but because she realized something. She wasn't the only one with the data, and someone else had already moved. She traced the logs. IP pinged from outside Budapest. The file had been copied at 2:00 a.m. and sent to 14 different journalists, funneled through a spoofed server, masked as Sorbonne University. She called Celeste. Oddly, Celeste picked up immediately. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Ava's voice was flat. "I didn't send the file." Celeste exhaled a faint laugh. No surprise. No anger. "I know. That's why we're still talking. If you had, this would be cleanup, not conversation." Ava asked. "Then who did it?" Celeste didn't blink. "That's the question, darling. Because the leak wasn't just about Venus. It included you. And Room 9. And everything tied to your name." Ava's grip on the phone tightened. "Someone's trying to burn the whole garden down." Celeste replied, "No, Ava. Someone's trying to replant it, without weeds." Across underground platforms, media inboxes and encrypted threads, distorted videos, guest logs, and anonymous party invitations began to surface. Not complete, not clear, but enough. Langston vanished from social media. A Norwegian MP canceled all events. A CEO took sudden indefinite leave. At the emergency meeting that evening, the boardroom felt tenser than usual. No voices raised. Only glances exchanged, phones checked compulsively. A man Ava didn't recognize stood at the head of the table. Charcoal suit. Voice like ice. "We've been compromised. Internally." He scanned the room. "This isn't a leak. This is a test. Starting tonight, every seat at this table is under review." Ava didn't speak. She didn't need to. She could feel it. No one trusted anyone anymore. Back in her apartment, she opened the tea tin. The USB was still there, intact, untouched. But she no longer felt like its owner, just the last one willing to carry it. Her phone lit up. One anonymous message. "You were never meant to be the leaker. You were meant to be the replacement." The next meeting didn't happen behind closed doors. It moved to the rooftop wind, sweeping through soft jazz, playing an untouched sparkling wine. No cameras, no names. Just watchful eyes and 3 empty chairs. One for Ava, the other 2 once occupied. Celeste sat across from her, dressed in a white suit, like she was attending a funeral. Champagne in hand. No lipstick. "We lost 2 last night," she said. Langston, Ava asked. "No, too soon. They're waiting to see if he breaks." But Mira and Goro gone. Quietly, surgical. Ava didn't ask who. The answer was always the same. A faceless collective who only needed you gone the moment you stopped fitting in. A man stepped forward. Straight posture, sharp jaw, eyes with no color, like they'd been programmed to scan data, not feel. "Nathan. Intelligence oversight. Call me whatever you want. I'll be your contact for the next phase." Ava raised an eyebrow. "There's a next phase." Nathan looked down at his tablet. "You've been flagged as stable, resilient, strategically quiet." The leak destabilized the order. They need someone to manage the narrative and the perception. Ava gave a soft laugh. "You want me as your media consultant?" Nathan shrugged. "We want you to erase the phrase Room 9 before it becomes a movement." She was brought into another dark room. No cameras. Just a social media map cluttered with red dots and vague tweets. "Some say there's a Room 9 at every party. Venus is just one of many stars. What happens when the guest list includes ghosts?" Ava's job was now clear: blur the name Room 9 by feeding the public a more compelling, more horrifying, but unverifiable story. That's how they controlled truth, not by denying it, but by diluting it. Celeste handed her 3 options: blame a mysterious artist, a misunderstood performance curator. Frame it as a psychological government project gone rogue. Create a fake victim, emotionally gripping, then publicly rescued. Ava stared at all 3. "What happens to the real girls?" she asked. Celeste's tone hardened. "They're real the moment you ignore them. Now they're just background." That night, Ava drank alone. Not at a party, not by candlelight, just the glow of her laptop and a cold hard drive beside her. She opened a file she'd never touched from Venus's archive. Not party footage, no sex. Just a quiet monologue recorded through a hidden mic. "If they make me disappear, at least someone will know." I wanted to stay. I wasn't trying to expose anyone. I just didn't want to be alone. Ava closed the laptop, sat in silence, then whispered, "Neither did I." The next morning, she walked into Nathan's office, handed him a USB. Not the leak. Just enough half-truths and doctored clips to convince the public that Room 9 might have been an elaborate high-end role-play game. Nathan reviewed it, nodded. "This buys us a year, maybe 2. And you?" he asked. Ava turned to leave. "I'll take what's left of that year and make sure someone else sees what I saw." Ava received the email at 3:12 p.m. Subject: quick question about Room 9. The sender: Emily.Holt@VerityJournal.org. Age 27. Freelance investigative journalist. NYU graduate. Focused on soft violence and structural invisibility. Not a big name. Not someone easily bought. And that's what made Ava uneasy. The email was short, precise, like a velvet-wrapped blade. "Hi, Ava. I'm working on a piece about how the elite use philanthropy to construct cultural myth. I keep encountering references to Room 9. I understand you've worked on security strategy for Duvall's events. No recording, can we talk? No extra punctuation. No clickbait tone. Just the voice of someone who knows exactly what she's digging into and is prepared to touch what's buried underneath." Ava didn't reply right away. She searched Emily online and found a picture of her smiling beside an elderly woman labeled survivor of the 1998 church massacre. Emily had written about profit systems behind natural disasters. She'd been threatened, lost funding, and kept writing. Ava called Nathan. "Someone's poking around," she said. "She's not corporate media. She doesn't play for money." Nathan didn't sound worried. He just asked, "Does she have reach?" "Not yet," Ava replied. "Then let her burn herself out," he said, and hung up. Ava sat in silence, eyes darkening. She knew exactly what kind of person Emily was, the kind who doesn't burn from the outside, but from the fire they choose to carry inside. They met at a cafe in Brooklyn. Outdoor table, no microphones, no pleasantries. Emily set a recorder on the table, but didn't switch it on, just placed it there, like a quiet reminder. "We both know what game we're playing." Emily began. "I don't need details. I just want to know if Room 9 is a real space or a metaphor for something darker." Ava smiled lightly, but her eyes stayed cold. "What if it's both?" Emily nodded, scribbled in her notebook, didn't interrupt. Ava continued. "Sometimes the most dangerous rooms don't need doors. They just need permission. And once you're inside, truth becomes currency too valuable to spend too dirty to touch." Emily looked up and asked, "Then who spends it?" Ava paused, exhaled slowly. "Those who already have everything except consequences." Their conversation lasted 48 minutes. No names. No descriptions of actions. Only the anatomy of an invisible power, one that survives scandal by feeding off systemized indifference. As they stood to leave, Emily said, "I won't quote you, but I'll write around you." Ava looked directly at her. "And if you get too close," Emily smiled a smile that looked strikingly like Venus, "then maybe someone will finally read it." That night, Ava reopened the files, renamed them, encrypted them into a symphony, set the password Venus Waltz 9, then sent the music to Emily. No message, no explanation, only a subject line. Some dances never end, but all of them leave footprints. The article was published at 6:00 a.m., New York time. The Velvet Cage Whispers Behind the Darkest Room in Philanthropy by Emily Holt. No names were mentioned. No one was accused. Only carefully painted images, a white dress, dim light from room 9, anonymous excerpts describing the feeling of being chosen but never released. The piece didn't indict anyone. It did something worse. It forced the reader to realize they never truly wanted to know the truth in the first place. At 6:09 a.m., Ava received an email from Emily. "Thank you for not telling me everything. You gave me just enough to make them bleed." And they did. By 10:00 a.m., Ava was summoned to an urgent meeting. Not at the office. No formal invite. Just a black car waiting in front of her building. The driver said nothing. No music played. She was taken to a villa over an hour outside the city. No signage. No guards. Just a wooden gate carved with a circular symbol overlapping a crack, as if the house itself was trying to hide an old wound. Inside the meeting room were 7 people. No introductions, no smiles. Ava was asked to stand in the center. No chair, no table, just a white circle painted on the wooden floor, and a single question: "Did you leak it?" Ava didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She looked each of them in the eye and asked instead, "Would it matter if I did?" The oldest man nodded. "It wouldn't, but we need to know. Whether you're still one of us, or if as of now, you've become one of them." A silver-haired woman spoke. "You understand what this means, right? This isn't just about the article. It's about the ripple, the whispers, the investors pulling out, silence turning hostile." Ava answered slow and clear. "Maybe silence isn't hostility. Maybe it's just been held captive for too long." Someone scoffed. "Poetic, but poetry won't stop backlash." Ava replied, "Neither will denial." There was silence. 10 seconds, then 15. Finally, the youngest man, impeccably dressed, wearing a watch worth more than a one-bedroom apartment, asked, "Do you want to leave, Ms. Leclerc?" She met his gaze. "I want to stop existing in a system built on deciding who gets to vanish." "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say." A key was placed on the table. Someone pushed it toward her. "Take it. Walk away. But if you do, you can never come back. Not to fix. Not to expose. Not even to explain." Ava stared at the key. She knew it didn't open any door. It was just a symbol, a quiet retreat, a death by absence. She didn't take it. She stepped back. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. But I'm no longer with you. I stand with the truth." She turned and stepped out of the circle. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Outside, the rain had started light, just enough to wash the dust from the stone steps worn smooth by years of powerful footsteps. She got into the car and checked her phone. A message from an unknown number appeared. "What you did was the first honest thing I've seen in a very long time. But now they'll make you choose again. Truth or voice." Ava received the call at 3:36 a.m. No number. No hold music. Just a man's voice, hoarse, clear, and cold like steel. Ms. Leclerc, we've been tracking your location ever since the Venus file surfaced. Ava sat up in the dark. And exactly who is we? You can call us Oversight 43. Informally, the unit responsible for preventing things from becoming stories. And you, Ms. Leclerc, are a story waiting to explode. They didn't send anyone. They sent a single code. Ava opened her laptop, entered the code into a private browser. A video began to play less than 30 seconds long. Footage of Ava and Emily at the cafe. Distant angle. Blurry but identifiable. Overlaid with a man's voice stitched together from old recordings. We decide who disappears. And when. Cut. A message appeared immediately after. This is not blackmail. This is leverage. We are not your enemy. We just don't want war. Ava understood. They didn't want her silent. They wanted her aligned if she accepted the script they had already written. 48 hours later, she was invited to an office building in Washington, D.C. Not through the main lobby. A side door in the basement, opened by a key card delivered via unmarked express courier. No recipient name. Inside a cold room, white lights a round glass table. A silver-haired woman wearing an owl-shaped ring was waiting. We're not the CIA. Not the NSA. We don't use acronyms. We have authority. Ava sat down. What do you want? We want your memory. We want your timeline. We want ownership of your version before it becomes the version. Ava gave a slow, quiet smile. So you're not interested in what happened. You just want to curate what people believe happened. The woman didn't deny it. Narrative management is about prevention, not correction. They offered her a deal Ava would consult for a proxy human rights organization secretly funded. She would share her experience through pre-approved media platforms. In return, they'd protect her Visa new identity encrypted financial accounts. In exchange, she would never speak of Room 9 as it truly was. Ava didn't respond right away. She simply asked, "And if I say no?" The woman tilted her head. Then you'll find yourself surrounded by so many versions of your own story that you'll either appear unstable or worse, complicit. On her way out of the building, Ava checked her phone. A new message from Emily. They offered me a national column. Condition remove your name from the headline. I said no. They said I'd regret it. Ava stood at a DC intersection. Cars passed. The world kept moving. No one knew she had just been invited to trade freedom for controlled survival. She didn't tremble. She felt only one thing. If truth has a price, then courage is the one thing you must never sell, even if they offer your life in return. Emily's next article was never published. She had submitted it. It had gone through 3 rounds of editing. A printing deal was signed. And then, silence. No rejection letter. No revisions. Just one day when no one replied to emails. Then a week when no phone number worked. Ava knew what was happening. No one needed to tell her. She had seen it before with others. But when it was Emily, the silence had a shape, and it looked like a hole recently filled with sand. She called. No one answered. She texted. No messages were marked as seen. Finally, she received a package. No return address. Inside was a burner phone, the kind you can't trace and only use once. The message inside read, "They offered me safety, but only if I agreed that I'd been manipulated by you." I didn't. Instead, I walked away. If I don't resurface in 5 days, tell them I got boring. Tell them I stopped writing. Tell them I faded. That's what they like best. Ava sat motionless, hand gripping the phone that no longer led to anyone. And she understood they didn't need to take Emily. They only needed her to vanish from the radar and convince the world it had been her decision. She opened a drawer and pulled out the old USB, the original Venus file. She'd never sent it, never deleted it. But for the first time, she thought about opening it again. Not to send, just to remember. That truth had once existed in blood. The screen flickered. Grainy footage played Venus standing in the hallway outside room 9 arms wrapped across her chest. Someone, possibly Ava, walked past, then turned back. Venus whispered, barely audible, "Do you think they'll notice if I never come out?" Ava in the footage said nothing. She just remained silent the way the system had taught them all. Ava switched on a voice recorder. She spoke not knowing who it was for, just documenting Emily Holt didn't disappear. She was filed away in a drawer labeled "too persistent," "too principled," "too loud for a room designed only for echo." The next day, Ava posted a short message on an anonymous journalist forum. "This isn't an expose. It's a memory. No source, no names, just one paragraph. The women didn't run. They walked in because they thought someone inside would hear them. But the walls were made of velvet, soft, expensive, and soundproof. 3 hours later, the post was taken down. But in that time, it was screenshot too, 481 times, forwarded 417 times through encrypted apps and permanently stored across at least 4 servers, one in Iceland, one in Switzerland, one in New Zealand, and one at an undisclosed location. Ava received a message from an unknown address. She's still alive. For now. Thank you for never telling the whole story. Keep it that way. Sometimes the dark protects better than the light. He showed up on a rainy afternoon. No appointment. No advance notice. He simply walked into the bookstore, where Ava often browsed, and stood behind her while she flipped through an old Margaret Atwood novel. No suit. No watch. Just a long coat and eyes she had never seen on him before, the eyes of a man no longer in control and unsure whether that was good or bad. His name was Julian Crane, the man who once approved the guest rotation lists for the system's private events, one of the clean hands behind velvet walls where Room 9 was managed like a luxury product. Ava didn't offer him a seat, didn't greet him. She kept the book open and asked, "Why now?" Julian pulled a thick envelope from his coat. Inside payment records, security rosters, and a handwritten note in Ava's own pen taken from a classified file. Because someone else is rewriting the rules. And I wasn't even invited to help edit them. He spoke slowly. After the article was taken down, the elite didn't panic. They pivoted. Instead of distancing from Room 9, they built Room 10. New protocols, new architecture, AI-based monitoring, no physical files, no human observers, just cycles. Ava tightened her grip on the book. So after all of this, they just scaled the abuse. Julian looked out at the rain. They industrialized it. He continued, "I didn't leave because I disagreed. I left because I was no longer useful. They found younger minds, quieter ones, people who see ethics as legacy software. I'm offering this to you because I'm tired of being remembered only as the man who signed the door codes." Ava didn't flinch. "How many did you sign?" Julian gave a tired smile. Enough to make hell feel repetitive. He placed a small storage device on the table, not a USB, but the kind used in aircraft. A black box containing extracted logs from the old system, Room 9, Room 10 room, X in planning and internal conversations. This is everything I could get. It's encrypted. Some files won't unlock until timestamp triggers activate. It's safe in case I don't live long enough to matter. Ava picked up the device. Why me? Julian answered without looking at her. Because you're the only one who never asked for a key, but somehow could open every locked door. Before leaving, he turned back, soaked from the rain hair sticking to his forehead. There's a name you'll find on that drive. One you won't expect. When you see it, you'll know who really protects Room 10. And not everyone wears a suit. Ava stood there long after he left. She didn't call him back, didn't check the device right away. She just exhaled and whispered into the quiet bookstore. Maybe this time, the crack will reach the foundation. The storage device was small, black, and heavier than it looked. Ava connected it to a separate laptop. No internet, no accounts, no recognition software. Triple encryption. One layer required voice authentication. She stepped back. Julian had once said some doors won't open until the system believes you're scared enough. She gave a faint smile. I passed that level years ago. The interface was surprisingly simple. A list of names, timestamps, and action descriptions. No images, no videos. Just black text on a white background, and each name felt like a blade pressed against the nerves of memory. The first name, Allison Merrick, Systems Analyst Clearance Level Infrastructure. Ava frowned. Allison wasn't a coordinator, not on any VIP lists. No one had ever mentioned her in a single briefing. She was just the one in the background, quiet. Always with the tech crew. Adjusting mics, checking bandwidth, pouring coffee, smiling softly. Ava opened the file. Immediately, a voice memo played, access granted. Merrick initiated Protocol 10 on February 12th, 2 weeks before the leak. Granted authority concealment of executive operations. Codename Axiom Root. Ava stepped back. Axiom Root, the code name for the architect of the new structural system, the one who didn't command directly, but reshaped how information was registered, modified, and quietly erased from history. And Allison, the same woman who gently smiled and asked if she wanted cream in her coffee, was the one rewriting the memory of everything Room 9 once meant. Ava examined the system logs. From March onward, every log, every backup, every mirror file was routed through a filter node, a network of servers that auto-assigned false metadata to each segment, misleading press crawlers, investigators, and public archives. Allison's name never showed. Only Axiom Root. There was a short audio clip, no timestamp. Just a conversation between her and someone else, identity unclear. If she finds out, she already knows enough to hesitate. That's all we need. And if she pushes, then we put her into the architecture. She won't stay quiet. She'll be absorbed. Ava unplugged the device. The room felt cold. Not from temperature, but from the realization that for the first time the threat wasn't coming from above. It was beside her. The one who used to adjust her headset, the one who smiled when others walked in. She called Julian. He picked up immediately. You've seen it, he asked. She's the Root, Ava said. Julian didn't sound surprised. That's how the system wins Ava. Not by hiding things, but by handing the keys to the one person you'd never expect to use them. Ava stood in front of the mirror. She looked at herself. Not to fix anything, just to remember the face before it got stapled onto a version of the story someone else would write. On the table, she set the device down. Next to it, a blank sheet of paper. She wrote one sentence: she was never invisible. We were just trained not to see her. Ava stayed awake the entire night, not because she was afraid, but because she knew this moment had to be directed like a monologue in a final play where the performer no longer has a role, only a self facing the distorted copy of who she used to be. She reopened the storage device, not to copy, not to share, but to execute a sequence. Julian had once told her there was a single flaw in the system, not in the data, but in how memory of speech was processed. Every time the system recorded a voice log, it attached a voice ID and a timestamp, but it couldn't tell the difference between a simulated exchange and a genuine admission. And if a spoken pattern matched the template known as admission from inside the system, would automatically tag it as an incident disclosure and push a copy to an off-site backup, one that even Axiom Root could not control. Ava activated the mic. No script, no draft. She just spoke. Slowly, clearly. Her voice like small stones dropping into still water. This is Ava LeClaire, former observer, involuntary participant, witness to disappearances, to reclassifications, to algorithms rewriting memory, and to smiles that meant complicity. She paused, took a breath. I saw room 9. I did not intervene. I rationalized. I complied. I pretended that silence was neutrality, but it wasn't. It was fuel. At that moment, the system began to record. It auto-tagged. It pushed the mirrored copy into an external server inside a data center rented anonymously during the early phase of the system's construction. Ava continued. This is not a confession. This is a mirror, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm demanding that those who watched with me finally acknowledge who we really were, the watchers, the writers, the architects of quiet compliance. As the last word landed, the screen flickered. The data was sent. And with it, a new beginning was launched, one that could not be taken back. 3 days later, an anonymous audio file began circulating on social media. No name, just a woman's voice, no details, no accusations. But every word struck the architecture soft enough to slip through filters true enough to stir anyone listening. It couldn't be deleted because no one knew who first downloaded it. It couldn't be censored because it didn't describe a crime. It couldn't be discredited because it didn't point fingers. It only reflected. Ava never appeared again. She didn't have to. Her voice was not a piece of evidence. It was a trigger one that made the system begin to reflect upon itself, and made those who thrived in the shadows start fearing the very mirror they once demanded be hung for others. She didn't disappear, and she didn't win. Ava simply stepped back and let the world hear again the echo it once pretended not to notice. No one mentioned Room 9 anymore. No headlines carried Ava's name, but somewhere in a voice played anonymously in the middle of the night, someone had begun to ask, what else have we trained ourselves not to see? Because sometimes you don't need to expose an entire system. You just have to make it say one honest sentence and listen to the sound of it breaking from within. They can control Walls Files data. But consciousness once awakened never returns to sleep. And Ava knew she wasn't the main character in this story. She was simply the last one, brave enough not to rewrite her role. And what about you? If you were given the chance to say nothing and survive, would you take it? Or would you speak, even knowing silence would be safer? Let me know in the comments below. And if stories like this linger with you Long after the screen goes dark, subscribe, not for views, but because some truths deserve to keep echoing. You can hide a crime, you can erase a face, but you can't unhear a voice.